So what else is going on?
Well, the very, very hot issue, which you and I have been discussing, of course, is Daca. And I think that we discussed it in the last time we got together. We were talking about Daca, but I think that we were talking about it in the realm of Daca expansion. We were talking about Daca 2, I believe, and I think we were also talking about DAPA.
That's right.
And the ability. So, as you know, I think it was what happened in Texas was that Judge Hainan had filed a restraining order against the DAPA program, and DAPA was restrained. DACA 2 never went into effect. And now what's interesting is, of course, the president has altogether taken DACA 1 out of commission. It's basically rescinded. So anyone who has DACA now has until October 5th to file an extension, and they will probably still get 2 years of work authorization. But then the question becomes, what happens from there? And that's a really good question. This basically this program affects 800,000 people.
Right.
The studies out there say that it affects potentially for our GNP close to $4 billion in monies that these individuals will be paying in taxes, and also in contributions that they're going to be making to Social Security.
So it would be very destructive to our economy, according to some reports.
Exactly.
Right.
So this seems to be what they're saying, and you know, I'm going to give you sort of a personal thing.
Please.
Is that you know, we had a DACA person. She came into our office and we applied for DACA, and I saw she was a very, very talented individual,
Right.
and we hired her. And she was working for us for a long time. She's now moved on to another place of employment, but she worked for us for a long time. I can say, as you know, personally seeing these DACA people, you know, they want to make a life here in the United States.
Well,
they were not okay.
Remind us what a DACA person is.
Okay, so a DACA person is an individual who was brought to the United States prior to the age of 16, who was not brought here by choice. Usually, it was their parents who were undocumented. They were brought to the United States, and then it was President Obama who issued what's called an executive action, and that's also something very interesting because and the media tends to get it a little wrong, and it's a little frustrating for me when I hear and I see in the media how they're discussing it, because they talk about it as an executive order, which DACA was not. See, President Obama did something. First of all, President Obama was brilliant with the way he did DACA. What he did was he vetted DACA through all of the and he, you know, he's a constitutional law professor himself.
Right.
So he vetted through all of his appropriate staff and all the appropriate methodologies that DACA was permissible because it was a logical extension of what we call is deferred action.
Right.
Okay, deferred action. So it's a deferred action type of program. It's been around for years and years and never questioned. Its constitutionality has never been questioned. And it was actually a logical extension first by Julie Myers, who was in charge of the Immigration Customs Enforcement. What she did was she issued a memorandum which said that what we're going to do is we're going to take a no action position with regard to individuals who fall into certain categories. And then a couple of years later, John Morton was in charge of the Immigration Customs Enforcement, and he did the same. But he honed that a little more. And part of one of those categories where we're not going to remove people were the dreamers.
Right.
And then what President Obama did was he just took a logical next step there and said, we're going to allow the dreamers to stay. He basically set forth certain criteria. And for example, they had to be before the age of 16. There were certain dates in place when they had to enter the United States and be physically present. And so that was DACA 1. And that opened up basically the ability for these 800,000 people to get work authorization in the U.S.
So what you're telling us is that the suggestion by Sessions and President Trump that this was illegal is inaccurate.
So again, very interesting. So President Trump, he keeps referring to it as an executive order that President Obama passed, but it wasn't an executive order. Okay, again, it was an executive action.
Right.
And then he basically took it offline. So it does say in the memo, the original DACA memo, that they do have the ability not to renew. And so he took the memo off, you know, so basically what he's doing is he's rescinding the memo. But then the question is that, is he in violation of the Administrative Procedures Act? Because President Trump, and actually and this was going back to when DACA was passed, everyone said, oh, well, President Obama is exceeding the ability that he has under the law. He's making executive orders. He's just basically making it up as he goes. But that's not really what happened, but that's what everyone alleges, okay? But here's the thing is, the argument then against what he did was, well, he should have put it in front of Congress, and Congress should have passed a law. And then that law should have been signed by the president, and that would have been the proper way to do it. So now we're 180 degrees, where President Trump has taken it offline, and everyone's saying, well, no, in order to take it offline, you have to do the same. You have to go and you have to follow the APA, the Administrative Procedures Act, and you have to also give notice, rulemaking, and then you can take it offline. So that's the argument. It's very interesting.